You're listening to the podcast called What No One Knows. I'm your host, Lisa Marie Garcia. Please join us as I talk with some of the most important influencers, from entrepreneurs to C-suites to founders to venture capitalists. You will want to know their answer to the question, what no one knows. Thank you for joining. Okay, welcome back to another episode of What No One Knows. We're here in the Wave Studio 1, downtown Tampa Bay at the Tampa Bay Wave Studios, which is also their Tampa Bay Wave offices. So today I'm excited to have a conversation with Maria Cate, and we're going to dig into the amazing work she does with the Wave and the amazing work she does within the community. So I'll give you a little background before we formally bring her on. Maria is a co-founder of Couth, and I love this statement, the only consulting meets creative firm for startups, and I notice it's trademarked. So I had never heard that before I read it, so there you go. She previously worked with Red Bull and Whoop before making her way into consulting to provide more hands-on go-to-market support to emerging companies. There's a ton more about her, but we're going to dig into that, and I'm going to put her complete bio in the notes. But I love where she says she is a marketer turned salesperson turned founder. So welcome, Maria. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So I want to talk to first about the tremendous work that you've done with the Tampa Bay Wave and what your experience has been, and maybe from the perspective of someone that doesn't know anything about the Tampa Bay Wave, I would love for you to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been mentoring for the Tampa Bay Wave for about a year and a half now, and I got involved as a mentor. So one of the bigger supports that I provide are participating in Mentor Surge, which is coming on site and spending one-on-one time, sort of like speed dating with all of the founders, and they come prepped, ready to go, do some background research on all the mentors that they're going to be talking to. So my background's in sales, marketing, so they'll come to me with very specific tactical questions about how they need support and advice that I have. So a lot of times it's very, very strategic, it's very tactical at the same time, that we're able to dig into the business and ask hard questions, pressure test what they're doing, pressure test what's working and what's not, and give them really actionable feedback. And honest feedback. I think that's really important and something that Tampa Bay Wave is really good at, right? It's not all rainbows and butterflies in the startup world, and you need those trusted consultants, advisors, people who are out there doing it, frankly, coming in and really helping with care and candor. So those things I absolutely love. So I've done, probably 5 or 6 mentor surges at this point with Tampa Bay Wave. And then some amazing kickoff sessions, in partnership with USF and the Muna Business School, and just seeing the impact that Tampa Bay Wave has had on the Tampa Bay community and the partnerships that they have with the university system. And, a startup ecosystem is an indicator of a strong business economy, and Tampa Bay Wave is at the forefront of that and really pushing that forward, which is amazing to be a part of because I'm local to Tampa, went to school here, moved away for a while, came back, and first thing I wanted to do was get involved to help support the community.
Where did you go to school? What area? Well, you went to
University
school here. Where
of Tampa.
Are you from? Okay, and then University of Tampa, that's right.
Yes.
So have you ever, I love that, being honest, speaking with candor and just calling it for what it is. Have you ever had that go wrong in terms of the person wouldn't receive it, the person wasn't coachable, they just took offense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have not read the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott, I would definitely recommend it. It talks a lot about caring deeply but challenging directly. So as long as you're approaching the conversation with empathy we know that you've poured your heart and soul into this business, right? But that doesn't always mean that everything you're doing is right or correct. And sometimes delivering that feedback can be really tough. But if it's coming from a place of kindness and empathy, then that's typically going to help frame it a little bit better to the founder. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't always land very smoothly, which is fine. I think most founders know that if everyone's just agreeing with you all the time, that's not the best place to be, because you want people to challenge what you're doing. You want people to poke holes in it, because that's what investors are going to do, and that's what the market's going to do. So you do need to, strengthen the shell a little bit, and I think communities like the Tampa Bay Wave really help make sure that happens, because you're getting so many different perspectives from so many different people and backgrounds that are important before going into the wild or before talking to those first customers or gaining traction, right? So it's important to get feedback and be comfortable getting pushback, because that's the real world.
And that's going to grow you, and that's going to provide something that maybe you overlooked because you're in the forest, right? And
Yep.
I love that you say, if everyone that is surrounding you, like it's those 5 people, if they're all saying, you're great, everything is great, look at you, they are not the right people. Now, I think
Right.
you need at least one of those people, whether it's family, mentor, that's, help,
Yeah.
just your fan, complete fan,
Totally.
right? And typically that's family in my experience,
Right.
right? The unconditional love, I'm your fan no matter what. But, years and years ago, one of the first business biographies that really stuck, and I love to read those, was someone that said, here's who I surround myself with. And it was a CEO saying, this guy is this will date me, my Excel guy. This guy is my, creative guy. This gal is this. And they were all had completely different skill sets, had completely somewhat different perspectives. And that's the feedback that you need,
Exactly.
right? And even in the age groups, like I've always loved to have that intern of that age group, that now Gen Z,
Yep.
millennial, because they look at the same exact thing that you as a C-type, C-suite founder for many years looks at something, you believe you know it 1,000%, and then some Gen Z says, well, what about this? You're like, what? I didn't even think about that, right? I mean, there's so
Exactly.
much value in that.
Yep.
But I love that you brought up, which is can be such an issue, that the person has to receive it, take it, and the big thing around us is we do not take offense. There is no offense, no offense, because that's such a blockage, right,
Exactly.
to good feedback.
Totally. So well said.
Well, I have had a lot of caffeine this morning, so I didn't mean to talk so much.
You and I both.
Yeah, right? Then there's that. So you talk about, let's dig in a little bit more into what you do in your business. And, you brought up empathy. So clearly you've got that, the human skills and understanding on top of what you provide with marketing strategy, startups, going to market. What would you say is one of the primary great traits when you work with someone and you're like in your head as you're first beginning to know them, when then all of a sudden you see that X factor, whatever, where you're like, okay, I can build on that. Or, okay, they're almost there. I can get them over the line. I mean, what would you say in your experience of working with them that's that, kind of general factor as opposed to their med tech, their health tech, their fintech?
Yeah.
Is there something like that?
Great question. I feel like, so we've been in business about a year and a half, worked with about 17 startup clients, all early stage. So, you definitely start to see some trends in successful founders and what sets them apart. And there's a few things. I think the first thing that comes to mind is people skills, the ability to simply communicate effectively, look people in the eye when you're talking to them, and not ramble in the wrong direction, right? I think synthesizing what you do, how you do it, keeping it simple and clear is one of the hardest things to do for a founder, because most founders we work with are very technical, and it's hard for them to simplify the value that they provide. So number one, just people skills, being able to communicate, being able to be simple, and your communication style is important. Another thing is positivity and optimism. It is hard to be a founder, and no one's out there telling you every day how great you are and how amazing your work is. And to be able to be that positive spirit amongst a lot of negativity and a lot of ups and downs is extremely important. And I've seen that a lot with a lot of founders. You face failure and you get up and you do it again. So positivity, optimism, really that that shining light is very important. And the last thing is leadership skills, just the ability to really manage a team, lead a team, and be able to keep the fire alive in others. It's one thing to do it for yourself, but to be able to get others excited about what you're building and be a true visionary and know where you're going next and, be able to communicate that to others again, I would say that's super, super important because you can be, the smartest founder in the world, but if you can't rally a team around you to work towards a shared goal, then you're not going to be successful.
Great. And I agree with everything that you said. Getting into the management part of it, in my experience, I really believe that you have to have the strong CEO and you have to have the strong COO. And those tasks and responsibilities don't mix, and they're different skill sets, but to, like you said, you can have all these skills within your organization and team, understanding of team, but if you don't have a leader that knows how to manage those, someone's got to step in there. I mean, call them what you want, but, just from that C-suite, because it isn't easy. It is not easy, period. Even if you've been in business for how many years, things come your way. I mean, COVID, hello, that's so obvious, right? But
absolutely.
That you have to be able to keep focused on the mission. So thank you for that. I was reading about you, too, where you say that, I love the statement, I love to be a part of something bigger than myself, which is also the mindset of it's not about me, it's about the team goal is the way I interpret it. It's about the team values, about where we're going to be as a team, not about me. Tell me what you meant, because that's what I thought.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It comes from my background and really my journey and what got me here. I started at a really big corporation. I started at Red Bull. Hundreds of thousands of employees, a cog in a machine, and I loved it. I learned a ton, but at the same time, I could, leave one day and nothing would really change. I think I had an impact in my market, but I didn't feel like I had an impact beyond that. And I just kept going to smaller and smaller companies and, experienced hypergrowth at Whoop. I was one of the first hires on their enterprise sales team and taking the business from a consumer business to an enterprise business, and was able to grow that with a group of amazing people and really feel the impact that I had. Because if I didn't show up to work one day, things weren't getting done. And, that gave me a lot of fulfillment, honestly, and what I was doing and who I was building it with. So funny, Whoop got too big. I ended up leaving and going to an even smaller organization where, I kind of worked in the agency world and experienced the ability to partner with so many different sorts of companies. We were working with bigger companies, but I knew that I had a hunger for startups and growing and building directly with founders, directly with leaders. And that's really why Kuth worked out for me and my co-founder, who I met at my last agency, because we're both builders. We both love to take something by the horns and make an impact and know that what we're doing is having a direct line and impact on the bottom line, which is a lot of how we position ourselves as a consulting meets creative firm, because a lot of agencies don't want to take that ownership. They're more of a peripheral service provider. We are in the weeds with you, coming to the table with day-to-day solutions to day-to-day problems. And that's really what we do, is we take startups from point A to point B, whether that's traction or fundraising, and we like to be able to grow with our partners and be like, yeah, we were with you from day one. And look at us now. You're growing your team. You've doubled revenue. So what's next? And help them on that path to growth, which there's nothing more fulfilling than that, and there's nothing better than building something cool with your friends.
Well, and seeing what you did is your work directly affecting the bottom line is something you don't get in corporations necessarily. Yeah. I mean, it's a whole different animal there, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So tell everyone what Kuth, how did that name come to be?
Yeah, so some people might be familiar with the word Kuth, C-O-U-T-H, which is cultured, sophisticated, refined. Some people might be more familiar with uncouth, which is sort of an old-fashioned word for unhinged, a little crazy. So we took a play on that word, and the double O is very popular, like Google. Like, there is trust and legitimacy in that. So we wanted to, take a spin on that word and come up with something different. And one of our amazing designers that still works with us now, she's incredible. She really brought the brand to life through our logo and the way that it's translated. It's all lowercase, and we love it. So yeah, that's the origin of Couth.
I think it's rockstar. I wanted to ask you that.
Thank you.
I thought very, very cool, and now that I know all the background of it, even better. All right, so one of the things I found in my many years of experience as an entrepreneur and business owner and professional, right, is I believe there are some things that you can only learn through experience. And what I believe, and what's happened personally, professionally for myself, is if I don't learn it the first time, then I get to learn it again, hopefully by the third time I got it. But I can't always admit that it didn't take more than 3 times. But what would you say in your experience is maybe something that you believe that you had to learn through what you went through as an owner and a professional?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think confidence is probably the first thing that comes to mind, because for me, I was a very shy child growing up. I was very behind the scenes, not someone who wanted to be the center of attention. And I think as I, worked for a company like Red Bull, there was just this expectation of big personality and, a little bit like blah type of a thing. And I think that was something that you just had to own working for a company like that, and everyone was like that. So to be able to go through that process and be a part of an organization with such a strong culture, I think that really helped me come out of my shell in a lot of ways and be confident and ride the energy around me, which was really amazing for my career in general, because I sort of reached this point where I was like, wait, I can do more. I can have a bigger impact, right? And I've never been one to settle. I could have worked at Red Bull my whole career and been really happy, but I was hungry for something else. And, at Whoop, this is part of, like, people don't know this about me, so I'll save it for that. But similar situation, I had never worked in sales before. I joined entry level as a membership services rep trying to climb the ladder, and I put myself out there and I took chances, and I believed in myself, and that inner confidence I never would have had if I wouldn't have been successful with it at Red Bull. And, I took a chance. I interviewed for a sales job with no sales experience and read 100 books and just became a skill of the craft. And I fell in love with sales. And that's really, like, if I never would have taken that chance, I never would have become the salesperson that I am now. And I just learned so much in such a short period of time, and then got a head of sales job at an agency 2 years later. Like, never would have imagined that. And to be able to combine my love of marketing for my love of sales with a role that fits both of those and marries those things so perfectly. Again, it's just, career journeys are just so, like, jagged, right? Yes. Like, there's no way to...
I was going to say, no straight line.
No straight line, and it's just so crazy in retrospect to think about that, because the confidence is really what I just continue to grow with experience and trusting myself and taking chances and pushing myself out of my comfort zone, along with just, learning styles of leadership, things that I liked and things that I didn't like. I think with experience, you learn how to be a leader too, and you really start to come into your own of the type of leader that you want to be and you want to become. And I was grateful to have, I've had, probably 10 bosses in the past, 7 years. And that was really good experience for me to see management styles and, how I manage up, which I had to do a lot. So, yeah, lots to talk about there, but...
Agree with everything you said there, and I've lived it and experienced it. What I also keyed into, which you said more than a couple times, is, you took chances. Mm-hmm. And so for me, being a risk taker and being willing to say yes before you have the skills and then just making it happen all of that, taking chances, is really that mindset of a successful entrepreneur. And there are so many people that don't have that mindset at all. They will not take a risk, even a calculated risk, right? Because that's not in their nature. And they don't take a chance that isn't for sure going to happen. It's just not in their nature. And there is such a difference between the mindset of an entrepreneur, not good or bad, and one that doesn't have that. So I loved hearing that about you, and you are an entrepreneur and founder. And thanks for sharing that, jumping into sales. Who would know? And now, very valuable that you did, obviously. All right, well, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but we are at the end of our show, so I get to ask you that fun question of share something that maybe one human knows or maybe no one knows about you. So what does no one know about Maria Cate?
Ooh, okay. Well, now that you framed it like that, like not a lot of people know about this. I mean, I would say only really my family knows, but I spent really my whole younger years drawing cartoons and wanting to be a cartoonist. If you asked me what I wanted to be when I was older, up until I was 15 years old, I would have said, I want to be a cartoonist. And I used to draw comic books and I would sell them to my family. I was always a hustler. I will say that. I was always trying to make a buck. That's for sure. But I was in the newspaper a few times and I was just so obsessed with drawing. And it did come to fruition a little bit. I started a design business in college called Twisted Hand, and I did a lot of personalized canvases and murals and point of sale designs for like Janice Live and Cigar City Brewing and things like that. And I fully wanted to drop out of school. I was like, I'm going to be an artist, but life happened, and I was like, I don't think I should drop out of school, actually. So, I hard pivoted, and then I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I was like, gonna do that for a while, and then Red Bull came along. I was on the Wings team in college, so I was the girl handing out Red Bulls at events and stuff, and it's just funny in retrospect to think back to that I did come from a place of wanting to be a cartoonist.
Well, and there's that creative part of you. I mean, you still have that. That is who you are. And I mean, there's that extra, right? There's not usually a founder, CEO type that has that extra creative, not typically, So I love that. All right, well, thank you for sharing all that you did. It went by very fast. It always does. And I appreciate you again being here on What No One Knows, the podcast.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. Till next time.
Till next time. Thank you for listening to our show, What No One Knows. If you'd like more information regarding our guests, it's in the description below, as well as if you'd like to work with our publishing and promotion team, that you can also find in the links. Thank you.